Thank you.
So, yeah, my name is Eisen. I'm a physicist by my profession and expertise. So I spent 15 years working in quantum mechanics, quantum electronics, and quantum computing area. And I'm PhD. And from 2010, I became entrepreneur. And today I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have 3 companies, 3 startups, quite successful. I am a member of Royal Society of Medicine. I am official mentor at Israeli Expert Institute and Israeli government. And I help a lot of startups in the United States, in Europe, how to become, I would say, founders with my help could become super businessmen. This is something new, but really we can learn how to do it through understanding how our world really works. And if you understand all connections and how our world is works, how conscience is working, how our body is working, you can build something that nobody can beat, because you can build your future by yourself. And this is what we call backward thinking or backward planning. So James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, said, winner and loser have the same goals. By the designer of your world, and not merely the consumer of it, be the designer of your world. And Omar Little from The Wire series said, look, man, I do what I can do to help you all, but the game is out there, and it's either play or get played. So if we're talking about that we are within some circumstances, it means these circumstances and all our world is playing with you. But you can make it by yourself, and you can play our world by yourself if you learn what I will teach you today. So actually, we will start from quantum mechanics because it's fundamental of how to make a world, your world, what you want actually real. So quantum mechanics is a fundamental science of micro world. And as you know, we are all 99% empty. Only 1% of matter inside of us. And we are built out of atoms, molecules. So we represent micro world inside. And Schrödinger developed very unique, interesting postulate that it's called, maybe you know this, I hope you know this, called Schrödinger cat. So where cat could be alive or could be dead. And it depends on some probability of decay. It's 50% of probability of decay or of some isotope of some atom. And if there is decay, cat is dead. If there is no decay, cat is alive. And we don't know what happens there because we are not observers anymore. So it's a closed system and we don't know what happens there. So in this case, cat is a part of quantum mechanics because it shares the same quantum mechanical state of the particle. It could be described by quantum mechanical equation. So a cat with half of probability could be alive and half of probability could be dead. And this is interesting. So in this case, this formula tells us that micro world, our macro world, is probable as well and connected to micro world and could be described by quantum tools. So in this case, based on what the outcome, if we take to and open the box and observe what happens, where either cat is alive or dead, we can decide that there are two directions in our world. One direction continue with cat alive, another direction continues with cat is not alive. So it's a two different parallel worlds happening together. And we, like observer, we choose, we influence, it's called collapse of wave function or collapse of the state. It means we have probability, we have a field of probabilities, of potential that with our help could be collapsed into the particle of our experience. So in other words, our intention creates our experience. We can think about, like, many people just make meditation, visualize things, and everybody learn from this experience that in high probabilities, with high probability, it happens what you visualized. And as more you visualized in details, as probability of happening is higher. But we're going even beyond of this. We're not talking about how to build our life. We are talking about how to build very complicated thing called startup or company, how to grow it, and how to navigate in these very uncertain world using this technique. So what scientists proved that there is real state called quantum mechanics world. This is only what real. And there are many superposition of many classical worlds. And each state of classical world collapsed into reality with our experience, with our influence. So we can decide what we want. And by correct managing and navigate towards this goal, but it's not actually goal, I'll explain why laterly. We can define exactly what we want, and we can reach what we want. So I could say scientists proved that there are numerous number of classical states. They are all existing parallel, but what we choose, this is our subjective reality based on our wish or free will, and this is what we can do. So I would finish this introduction using or presenting very interesting experiment that Dan Radin, professor, conducted for a long time, for about 6-7 years. And he proved that if you take very famous experiment and send photon through two slits, you have some interference picture. So you have some amplitude of maximum, minimum, maximum, minimum. And what he did, he asked people, some people, 50 people around his laboratory, to think about this experiment. They didn't see this experiment. They just were focusing on this experiment for 30 seconds and then relax. Then make focus again and then relax again. And what happened? When they were focusing on this experiment, amplitude of these fringes down or shrinks 5 sigma. And he conducted more than 100 experiments with the same result. But most interesting that it happened for people who are meditators. If you know how meditate, it happens. For common people, with common people, it doesn't happen. So only people who know how to focus and meditate to get into unconscious state, they can do it. Then he continued this experiment, extended. So he asked about 5,000 people all over the world. Again, separate people who who knows to meditate, who doesn't know, who do not know. And he asked them to do it through the internet, over the world. And it happened the same outcome. But most interesting, that it wasn't dependent on distance. So it happened at the same time, whether people in Japan, in the United States, or in Europe. So there is no space and there is no time. And this is what quantum mechanics tells us. In quantum mechanics, there is no time and there is no space. Our photon doesn't have time. So if you move with velocity of speed of light, you don't experience time. So it looks like everything is written like in Netflix series, but what we have through our experience in conscience, we just take it in time, frame after frame. That's why on our free will, we can select what we want and navigate towards this. But do not forget that you are not only, there are 6 billion observers. And all these mass create a huge superposition of different reality that just compete against you. So when you think about how to create something, you should think about timeline. For example, if you're going to change the world tomorrow, it won't happen because you cannot influence, because all wave functions, all their words already collapse. So very small number of words, free words in quantum mechanics field just left. So everything is done already. But you think about something about 3 years. Nobody's thinking about 3 years, not 6 billion people. So you're free to decide, and you can influence in 3 years if you properly design this path toward your success. So quantum definition of consciousness, this is what works for us. Consciousness is a separation of alternatives, of alternative worlds. And this is what we're doing by our subjective influence on our world. So let's take Waze, for example. Nobody knows how Waze algorithm does work. But what I know, they think they start from the point B, from the destination. When you put destination, they start to calculate just your path or your back. And if something happens in the middle, they immediately recalculate this, compare to their what happened before. In this case, they have a benchmark which came from the initial calculation. And then if something happens that you don't have influence, so it's we call it context. You cannot manage it. It happens without your conscience. You can calculate another path and go further. So this is how backward thinking works. You start thinking from point B, and you get back through different milestones or nodes to point A. And at each point, you decide what you want to have, what kind of resources you have to collect in order to transform your stage A to some middle stage towards stage B. And I call it coder. It's a knowledge of precision, it's a knowledge and is a precursor of experience. So coder consists of opportunity for your business, deals, it means resources. All resources you can get only through deals. You cannot just have it from nothing. Effect. This calls product, its operation, its planning, so everything what you could release through your efforts. Networking, most important stuff, because everybody belongs or depends on right people. So we're talking about subject, we're talking about object, and relationships and interaction between them. So opportunity is based on if there is demand and how to build or identify and build this demand. By the way, vision, mission includes here. Deals tells you about viability of your company and viability of your product, if you can make money, what kind of deals you have to do, what kind of resources you have to make, what kind of analytics you have to apply. Feasibility tells you about how to operate and how to plan on more tactical level. And networking, everybody understands, so who is behind this success. But in the middle, we have conscience. And I would ask you to think what is wrong in this picture, why it doesn't represent conscience. So what is wrong here? Okay, we will back to this by the end of my master class, and we will talk about it, what is wrong here. But actually conscience, this is what in the middle of everything what we're doing. Conscience is a place where psychology and physics, quantum physics overlap. Okay, and conscience, we call it conscience. Through conscience, we understand our world, and our world we understand through our perception. It's not objective. Everybody has bias. So we don't see real world. We see projection of the quantum world on the classical world, on Newtonian world, our world, and we see this world and understand and perceive this world through our perception tools, and we sense this way. So conscience is here. Conscience, we call it usually that the brain is a tool of conscience, and the body is manifestation of the life. And now we can build. When we will, then we will find some example, and I'll show you how to do it correctly. But what we can build, we can map the future, and we can understand the steps that we have to complete in order to have to get to success. So we could start from statement of state A based on a coder. So for each building block of the startup, we can define state A and state B. State A, where you are now. So you can analyze it, define it, and use this building block like a plan how to define. Now we come to state B. People call it set the goal, but actually it's not the goal. It's a state that you have to make real. It consists of many goals inside. It could be KPI. You can analyze what kind of KPI you have to have, what kind of revenue. So actually, this is where you're gonna to come. This is your outcome. But I would think this like real. You, in order to change reality, you have to take this state B and bring to as real to our time today, because when your body doesn't differentiate between is it real or it is the result of your thinking. So if you bring state B here where you're successful, for example, state B is exit, and you write all about it in details. You remember experiment about two-slit experiment as more focus. What is focus in this case? As more detailed you describe this state B, as better focus, as more probability that you reach this place. So you define this state B, and you experience this even today. And you cannot differentiate this from your real experience. So when you come to investor, for example, you come with a huge self-confidence because you have expertise in state B, you have expertise in reality that happened at state B, and you can explain these to investor like you described your wedding, with so self-awareness, with such a self-confidence that your chance to get money increased 10 times. You know exactly your path towards this success. So for each state, we define opportunity, deal, effect, and right people. And most important, that when you start to build all these chain, you will find something where there is some problem to build it. You don't know how to do it. And this will be the most critical path for you. You know, even today, your most critical path. Like way start to build your path, and in the middle there is the traffic jam. It's a critical path, so they're looking for how to somehow to overcome it, to avoid it. So this is exactly critical path. There you're stuck, and if you're stuck at some point between two nodes, you have to pay attention on this and much better work out this, elaborate this transition. So, and how many stages you define between? For example, you're talking about 3 years. In three years, you're going to have exit. And you should define stages. If you define too high resolution, in this case, you will get into micromanagement. That's not good. So because it's strategic approach. So you have to find something strategically where you have maximum 4 efforts to jump from one level of your company to another. 90% of company get into the loop because of fixedness by the management and something like this. And they cannot jump to another level. They still sell for 5 years, their sales $5 million. That's all. They cannot jump out of the loop. So this is what you can avoid using this platform. So, and if you want to check your chain, you can ask why this node happens, for example, and what next. So what? So you create circumstances where you can transmit your company from this stage. It's just 5%, could be 10%, doesn't matter, it's not linear. Transmit this stage to another stage. What kind of resources you need? What kind of people will help you to do it? So you can define at each state. So you come to state 50%, for example, right? You know you want to reach 50%. It's challenging because you need specific people. For example, you know that who is the most important employee at 80%. You have the profit. Maybe somebody who can accumulate the profit and manage money. 50%, you have less profit. Maybe most important guy here who can grow even more, help to grow. 20%, maybe here the most important guy is sales hero that you can find and you can afford, who can help you to move from 20% to 50% and just to have rocket growth. 5%, who you need there? Maybe you need some product development guy. Who is your most important guy? And you have to build requirement how this guy will help you to move from 5 to 20. And 0, for example, who is most important guy at 0? Somebody who is developer, for example, right? Somebody who is doing prototypes. Most important guy. So you define who is it, and you define context around all these nodes, all these states, because context is very important. This is what introduce uncertainty, like sudden traffic for you in ways. And in this case, you could predict through some analysis, from reports, from market reports, you could predict, but actually all this chain, then you can use like a benchmark to compare with real life and to make some adjustment. Okay, so let's think about, let's make some example. For example, you need some key person who help you to grow from 20% to 50%. So you know exactly what you want to have at 50%. Maybe you want to have 100 clients. Maybe you want to have $10 million in revenue or $100 million. You decide, but you decide all KPIs within all building blocks. What is it? By the way, it's very important intention here. If you think, oh, it's bullshit, it won't help, I tell you, your probability of success will be much lower because it reflects your intention to do something. An intention behind all success. Without intention, there is no success. Okay, so you think, okay, who I need to hire in order to move, for example, to 50%. Okay, who can help you to make transition to 50%? So I have to formulate my requirements to this person, and I should understand exactly whom I need, whom I have to place on here, and if he accepts my or can afford such a guy. So you should look at the candidates and select them. Even today, you should build archetype of your candidates. So you have to master how to analyze this guy and to understand his values. Sorry. Analyze his
Hey, I'm
values.
going to mute everybody. Dr. Eisen, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Should be go. Just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I did it.
There you go.
I did it. Okay. So you have to understand the values of this guy, sources, how it's aligned with your company, and then compare requirement with the real life that you're going to do. So you build some requirements and you should to compare with real life. So for example, there is a joke. Some people say, I like you, employer said, I like you resume, and what university did you graduate from? And employer said, oh, very good question. I graduated from the resume writing university. So this is what we have to avoid. So you have to understand exactly what kind of people you need, what kind of guy you need. So if, for example, let's falsificate something, yeah, who you need. For example, it should be very, very aggressive growth at this stage, right? Who can do it? What kind of people you need to help to aggressively grow your company? So it's a very ambitious task. So I have to be ready to interact with people and to hire people who are very ambitious. And it should be sales hero in this case. And you should understand how to work with this guy, how to find this guy. Maybe it should be some sportsman. Maybe it should be forward, because she had to go forward. She had to bring you sales. And at the same time, he has to understand how to optimize efforts. This is what happens for example, saucer players or something like this. So at this case, you need somebody who played something when he was young, and he has this archetype. And you write it down here. You write it down who are looking for. And then at the next stage, you are looking for somebody, maybe it will be different person, who can even increase the growth. Maybe it should be different, or maybe It's some plateau. You don't want to grow anymore. You are in a stage of exit. You need somebody who was playing piano when he was young. Somebody with analytical mind to keep the sales, to keep accounting on the same level, and somebody who has very good communication skills to support your clients. So this is what this backward thinking helps you identify for each block. And by the way, everything is connected. You're gonna grow sales. You're gonna have specific people for this. So we don't have a lot of time because we have a QA after that. So you have to be ready to interact with different people, with some ambitious people. And by the way, this sales genius could blame you if something doesn't happen and could put on himself all success. So we have to understand how to afford even this genius. So in conclusion, you should write stage B. You should define middle stages and define who you need, by the way, by verbs. For example, I will grow, who you need, grow, support, start. So who you need exactly based on the verbs at each stage that you define. Okay? So this is more or less what I was going to share with you. And just I would like to tell you what the values of backward thinking. So it's align your mind with potential reality. This again, potential is potential, but as you better align yourself, as better you have it. By the way, about some person you are looking for at stage 50%, for example, or 30%, if you define exactly whom you are looking for, your process of search will be very, very short, because this guy will appear by himself at some conference, on even in elevator, because quantum world will bring you this guy. Okay, so you have the real benchmark to compare with. You can improve dramatically improve performance of your company. You can have decisions anytime. You have these decisions. By the way, strategy is a set of decisions, and you did it already. You have the full strategy. You know exactly what to do. If you, for example, was a year in a coma, you came out of the coma and you know what to do. By the way, coma is a great place for people to be, because in coma they are in the quantum world and they have the huge experience there. They don't want to get out of there. So you can remove fixedness. You can avoid all failures and uncertainties. And actually, you can maximize your results. It's difficult. Not everybody is built to do all these intentions and to materialize these intentions. But this is what separates successful people from losers. So it gives you also ability to see the full picture and to be in future today. And by the end, I ask you to understand why it doesn't work, and we will talk about it during QA. Why this picture doesn't reflect what we're talking about conscience. We will talk about during QA. I would be happy to hear your opinion, guys. Okay, let's go to QA.
All right, Dr. Eisen, thank you so much. That was awesome. So from here, guys, for everyone that's been here, you might remember, we're going to hop over to Air Meet, where we can, you guys can interact with Dr. Eisen. Also, Gary will be there. You can check in with Gary and say hello. You know, talk about anything you'd like, whether it's kind of strategy or
Nick,
market question sales.
Nick, from my experience, it's very interesting subject. People, it takes time to comprehend it, but if they take it, really it works. But it takes time to understand how it works. It's not just simple visualization.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Dr. Eisen. I actually work on some of this stuff myself and trying, positive visualization and thinking about, that basically anything is possible. You look out there and you see what other companies have done. Why can't you do it? Create kind of a plan around the belief in yourself and get it done.
Right.
I'm with you, but you got to believe, and that's the kind of the first step.
So what's wrong with this picture?
Which one?
This picture of the brain. What's wrong here?
You got me.
People mute.
Oh, yeah, you can, if you're trying to speak, you can unmute.
Yeah. So what's wrong with this picture?
This is Peter from Finland. Hi.
Hi.
I'd say we are looking at 4 boxes instead of one coherent entity where everything is mixed up.
Maybe, but I'm talking exactly about this conscience picture that describes conscience. That describes conscience, yeah, brain.
Yeah. The one in the middle. I get that, but somehow I think it's like the brain and the world is much more elastic than 4 boxes. So that was my thinking about it. But let's move on.
Yeah, you're right. Good intention. And so what else? Who else?
I would say the brain isn't necessarily, the seat of consciousness. There's also other neurological systems in the body, and we're not quite clear, what the brain totally is yet. Maybe it's a quantum antenna, maybe it's all kinds of other things. There's theories. As we study artificial intelligence, we're starting to gain some insight into what neurology really is. But I would say perhaps the brain itself, the physical brain anyway, is not necessarily what's at the center here.
Yeah, bravo. It's yeah, 90% you're right. And by the way, interesting thing, what difference between AI and conscience? Why AI will never be or replace conscience? The difference that AI is based on past experience.
Good, yeah.
And consciousness take into account not only future experience that AI cannot do, it doesn't exist, but at the same time take into account and get access like Einstein has, or Leonardo da Vinci, get access to parallel world and take some data and take some knowledge from parallel world. This is what happens. And artificial intelligence cannot do this. That's why it will never replace consciousness. So, and about this consciousness is not the brain. It's our ideas, our flash of idea or aha moment doesn't happen in our brain. Brain is the receiver of this. So that's why all waves of probability coming through your brain, at some point where you are in resonance, you catch up with this, like Mendeleev table. And he wrote in the morning, he understood at night, like Einstein did, like other people. There is a saying, the night brings counsel. This is exactly about it. It's not only brain, it's all the world, quantum world around the brain, and brain is the receiver.
What would your thoughts be on the possibility of a quantum AI replicating consciousness? In a way, our mind is really fat, right? It's water and fat that thinks and does, more than that, of course. And, an AI today is really just sand that's doing something very similar. But could a quantum AI one day replace consciousness?
Who will be observer there? It should be observer. So how can you make quantum AI to be observed, to become observer? This is the question.
Okay.
Any questions? By the way, everybody who is interested, we can make some mentor session together. I get it inside. I get you inside even more. I help you to build your own backward thinking chain. That will really help. So I'm open to work with you guys.
Hey, Dr. Eisen, is there more we can read on this? Like, is there any like books or literature you can suggest?
Yeah, you can have a lot of literature is esoteric, so it's something that is not based on scientific knowledge or proved by science. It's more esoteric. But it's very. I think there is a book by Michael, Russian professor Michael. Let me see, Michael Mensky. There is a book in Amazon. Exactly, he explained theory of Everett, American physicist, who created theory of many word. It's called many word theory in 1957. Everett, and Everett behind this theory of multi not universe, it's one universe, but multi worlds, quantum worlds within the universe, and the reality, only reality of quantum worlds, and just subjective reality of classical world. Mensky. Also, as I said, you can read very interesting things. There is a couple of books of Dan Radin I recommend.
Mm-hmm.
He's a thinker, and he is behind these experiments. By the way, what I have to say, why it's very important to make all description of the state in details, because your future depends on ability of observer. You are observer, ability to be observed, and relationships between these. So if by focusing on something, you create or you increase ability to observe, and you increase ability of this object to be observed in future.
Dr. Eisen, this is Barbara from Joshua from Up and Change. Thank you so much for the possibility with the mentorship. We'll, my partner and I will come back to you on that. But I have one question. There's quite a difficulty to find the correct milestones. As you said, it's a strategic process. But as in the Waze app that you showed, if you have like backfire or fire from the sides the whole time, I have a question of how often should you really adjust it? Because I mean, sometimes it's just like a minor thing, and it's just like, on a driveway, you would drive around a cat and not over the cat. And sometimes it's a major thing where you've got a huge hole in the middle of the road and you'll have to find another path. But it's really difficult if you build a startup with a product or a service that nobody really has yet, and there's not so much there are not so many benchmarks around. So what would you suggest there? How do you get the right sort of level of when you should react and rethink the whole process, or rethink a milestone, and when you shouldn't?
First of all, you can build your milestones because it's future using your brainstorm strategy with your team. Because through this brainstorm, you use many subjective consciousness that helps a lot. Just add into your reality. It helps really any branch, and this is your first, I would say, first line of the chain, and then, and you can set up this like a baseline. Like for patients, for example, we measure in the beginning patients, we screen the patients, we build the baseline, and then we see what happened to the patient. Same here. You build the baseline based on your assumptions that you get through the brainstorm, and then you watch what happens. And if something happens, you have your benchmark, what you want exactly, because benchmark reflects exactly what you want. And if you cannot get what you want, you can navigate appropriately to overcome this problem and get back to the track.
Perfect, thank you.
And
for the
Leon, this is Umesh Bhatia here. I have a question for you. Very interesting presentation, especially with the meditation concept and the concept of consciousness involved in this. I have been a long time meditator myself, so your thoughts and the experiments you're talking about resonate extremely well with me. I have one question here. Using this kind of thinking, can you give me a couple of examples of really successful startups or exits or whatever in the corporate world from your own experience that you would say, hey, here are 3 great examples of this kind of thinking being applied and the outcomes being achieved the way this conversation was designed today?
I don't know. I developed this recently based on my experience. My company, Occitan Medical.
So going back to Barbara's question, right? When you were doing the backward thinking for your company, and I read about the examples that you have in your own case, it's very brilliant. If I use Barbara's own example, right? What was that? Was there when you defined your state B, right? And you're going for that particular point of success. In that point of state B, and using the example that Barbara said about a pit in the road, right? And suddenly you have to take a big detour. So where did you hit that pit in the road, so to say, where you had to take a detour which you did not anticipate? And once you had that experience, what would you do differently to define state B in future?
First of all, I never changed state B because it's final state. I didn't come there yet. For example, not in my case, but somebody didn't come to it. It's a final stage and you don't know what happens there yet. And you never change it. This is most important. Don't touch state B. Just if you see that, I don't know, dramatical change in the context or some new opportunity rise. In this case, yes, you can. But in general, it's not good to change state B because it's real already. You need to write new reality on your reality that you have already. That doesn't work this way very good. So if you have some problems or pitfalls at stage, I don't know, B-1, B-2, B-3, in this case, it's some middle stage. All KPIs, they're in some range, taken in some range, because of you can take into account risk management and uncertainty what happens. And this way, you can build different strategy if you see some deviation from your main path.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
By the way, reality that you set up change your genetics and change your chemistry. And it's very difficult to change it again. So when you decide on something and work on it every day, you change your chemistry in your brain, you change your body. It's like you start going to the gym, for example, you change your genetics. Or if you're gonna have the tea now, you stand up, you're going to take the tea, you change the universe. You collapse one of the classical wave functions.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, hey, I have a question regarding the consciousness of the team. I mean, it's one can understand from a individual or personal point of view, but how do you combine the multiple routes into the picture? I mean, we can agree on a destination B with a team, but the team may have very different routes in their site how to get there. So there will be many conscious paths what to take in order to reach the destination B.
Okay, very good question. Amazing. You have your own classical world. You are living, where do you live?
I'm living in Tallinn, Estonia.
Wow,
Of Europe.
great, great. And you have your classical world there. And suddenly my classical world cross your classical world. And now we're both observers of the same thing. Interesting. This is what happens with your team as well. We are both observers and we collapse. We collectively collapse quantum world into the state where we are now together. We have collective effort to do it. And we like it.
Adding on to that, is passion and purpose something which accelerates this whole thing or accelerates the whole situation for you?
Definitely. Passion, it means intent. It's a part of intention. And intention, without intention, you cannot do anything. Intentions is getting your mind and getting your purpose clear. This is what does it mean intention, and this is the process. So if you have passion, it means you have intention. And by the way, when I take people, employees, and we can have another webinar how to hire people, because I have a huge experience and I have my own approach to this. I can also share with you. When you hire people, there is a SWOT analysis of these people, and lack of intention or specific level of passion and intention, it is a weakness, huge weakness. Without intention, you cannot get anywhere. Again, in the beginning, you saw saying by author of Atomic Habit, he said that everybody has the same goal. We all create a company to make exit or to build something, but only small percent of people come to the goal because low intention. That's all. This is only reason. So how to increase intention? This is what exactly I shared with you today.
Leon, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule today.